Hey there my lovelies, and welcome to my BookTube channel, the sci-fi library fox. My name is V, and today we're going for my March wrap-up video. And I read so many books in March. I can't even believe it myself. I read 6 books. I can't remember the last time I actually managed to read 6 books in a month, but it must have been last year because it's been a while. It's definitely been a while, and those books were really huge as well. So I read a total of 2,555 pages. Yeah, that's a lot. And I even had a very high rating. I think it was something like 4.42 or so. So yeah, the books I read were rated very highly as well. And the interesting thing is I had to give a lot of those books back to the library. I think they all were library books, so none of them is with me now. And part of why I read so much is certainly due to the fact that I had to return them to the library and wanted to finish them before that. So I kind of fell into a reading slump after reading 3 books that all had more than 450 pages. So yeah, I'm currently a little bit slumping. I hope it will get better once April progresses, but I don't know. I think I exhausted myself with reading too much. I don't know if I'm the only one or if this happens to other people as well. But here it is. I'm in a reading slump and in a review slump because I have about 18 reviews to write, and that's a really horrible high for me. I've never had so many unwritten reviews. Yeah, I need time. I need a week with more than 7 days or more hours a day. I don't know. It's been a busy time lately. Anyway, enough of this super long life update. And before you ask, I got a award. Apparently I'm turning into an evil sorcerer. And those two I jammed into something, and you don't even want to know where I jammed them. So let's leave it at that. Right back to the wrap up video. And yeah, to the 6 books I read in March. And I got my coffee at the ready, I got my cheat sheets, and the first book I read in March was The First to Die at the End, and it's written by Silvera, and I gave it 4.5 paws, which says a lot about my enjoyment. It was the prequel to They Both Die at the End, which are both books that belong to Deathcast or the Deathcast series. And I like that world building, and I was really happy to find out that there is a prequel, and of course I had to read it. But this time around it didn't hit as hard as with They Both Die at the End, but probably that was due to the fact that you already kinda knew what you would have to expect, and the world was not new anymore, so it was a pretty familiar world. The interesting thing about this book was that it plays before Rufus and Matthias' journey. So we had a couple of cameos in that one, and Orion Pagan and Valentino Prince were really such lovely and sweet characters, honestly. The book kind of plays at or in the evening before the first Deathcast roll and call goes out. Everything is brand new and shiny, and no one has used Deathcast until that day. They are kind of launching the program. A lot of people subscribed to the program. You could subscribe for just 1 day or for an entire year, or I don't know. But it's the evening of the first Deathcast call. And yeah, we have a lot of perspective in that one. We have Orion, we have Valentino, and we sometimes even have the cameo's point of view, and also Joaquin Rosa, who was the inventor of Deathcast, and his point of view, and a couple of other point of views. So I really love the way Adam Silvera writes his books, because it's so interesting to follow all those characters and to see what's happening. And well, I guess I'm not spoiling anything, because this happens right at the beginning of the book. Valentino is called by Joaquin Rosa himself, and he's the first person to ever get a Deathcast call, and he's told that he's gonna die. So he didn't even want to sign up for Deathcast, but right before midnight he meets Orion and his bestie, and they start to talk, and there's an instant attraction between Valentino and Orion. So Valentino kind of decides to put his name into the Deathcast and to get a subscription for just one day. And well, unfortunately, he's the first person who ever gets called by Deathcast. And yeah, of course, he's in denial and doesn't take it well. He goes through all the stages of grief. But the sad thing is that Valentino just moved to New York, and that his twin sister is still back at home, and she will only get there in the morning, so he doesn't even know if he is going to survive until the next morning, let alone if he will ever see her again. And yeah, Orion kind of sticks around with him for the rest of his last day, and they try to make the best out of it. So that's all very sad. What I really liked, I just loved the two main characters. Orion and Valentino were so precious. They were so precious, you have no idea. And well, I loved how Adam Silvera raised very important questions, because Deathcast is all new, and there is a lot of talking about whether people should be helped if they get a Deathcast call, if the medical personnel and doctors should even help them. So I found it really thought-provoking, because if you get a Deathcast call, are you going to die because everyone decided not to help you because they think you're gonna die? Or are you actually dying because you were supposed to die? So there are a lot of open questions, and I love that Adam Silvera kind of addresses them and leaves it up to the reader to answer those questions themselves. So that's great. And before I continue to babble about this book, I will just heat to the next one. This one got 4.5 paws, and you can already tell that I loved it. So if you enjoyed reading They Both Die at the End, I'm pretty certain you will love that one too. Okay, up to the next book. And I hosted Minuscule March in March, so of course I read a couple of short books as well, and that one was one of those short books, and it was Psalm for the Wild Build by Becky Chambers, and it was the only book last month that actually got 5 paws from me, because it was so great. I absolutely loved the story. I mean, we're basically talking about a world in which robots became sentient, and they worked for humankind, and a couple of centuries ago they got self-aware, laid down their work, and just went into the wild and decided to do whatever they wanted to do. So humanity is left. They kind of made a deal that they would check in with humankind every once in a while, but for so many years and centuries no one has heard of them, until Sibling Dex, a tea monk, decides to go into the wild and kind of meets Moskop there. Which is a robot, by the way. Moskop is a robot. He's named after the first thing he saw when he woke up. So I think it was a splendid Moskop or something like that. So I love that about the book. And Sibling Dex is non-binary, and they are getting approached by Moscat. And I love this book so much because it was so nice to read it. It's really a short book. I think it had about 150 pages or so, but it was really nice to read. And it was kind of interesting how sibling Dex was scared of Moscat at first, but then they start to talk, and by talking they get to know each other, and it kind of reminded me of those wholesome conversations you have as a kid. You don't know that other kid or that other person, but you just approach them and you start to talk to them and you find out about their lives, and it's really so nice. It was such a nice concept for a book. And well, sibling Dex has some sort of life crisis when Moscat approaches them. So that was really interesting as well, and I absolutely loved the way Moscat fought and how different humans and robots fought in general and how it was shown in the book. So that one was a great one, and I gave it 5 paws. 5 paws all the way because it was just so great. Okay, next up, I'm gonna take a sip before I talk about the next book. Next book is a tough one. I'm gonna take a second sip. I needed to brace myself, and I'm probably going to talk a while about that one because it was A Little Life by Hanya Yanagihara. I hope I didn't butcher the name. I gave this book 4.5 paws, which is a very high rating. But hear me out, I can't recommend this book to anyone. I just can't. Because that would mean that I would recommend you to put yourself through the ringer, the emotional and heart-ripping ringer that is this book. So I can't really recommend this book. It was amazing, amazing. I don't know, it was really good. I was glued to the pages. I had to know how it would continue and what would happen next. So the author gets kudos for the narration and for writing characters you really care about and want to know more about. And the interesting thing is, this is even historical fiction, but I honestly, I was kind of glad that there was a little bit emotional distance because it was historical fiction, but it wasn't enough. I still felt the pain. So the author did a great job with that, but honestly, I mean, the book is basically about Jude St. Francis, and Jude was an orphan that was taken into, I think it was a cloister. How do you say that? Brothers. There were some brothers from the church that took him in, and they raised him. And yeah, Jude had such a hard life, honestly. If you're already, my bestie always says she's scared by the cover with the man who looks like this and in agony, but quite honestly, the cover is nothing to what you're going to read in the book. Jude St. Francis is made to suffer, and he suffers his entire life. And the interesting thing about this book was, I think it started off pretty normal and ordinary. We get to know 4 friends, and those 4 friends are Malcolm, Willem, and JB and Jude. 4 friends. And what I found really interesting is that at the beginning of the book, we have them in equal measure, and it's told a little bit about all of their lives, but then the book starts to have a heavy focus on Jude and on Willem and on Harold, another character who has a couple of point of views and chapters in there. And I found it really interesting because the focus shifted to Jude and to Willem, and I'm not certain if the author intended it to be like that or if it just happened. But yeah, the focus changed to those 2. And we follow their lives, and we find out more and more about Jude's past and what happened and why he has chronic pain, why his legs aren't working the way they should, and what is happening in his current life from, I think, his late teens to his 50s or something. So that was really an interesting build up for a book, an interesting composition, but Jude suffers so much, and I don't want to spoil anything here, but I need to make a spoiler section, so please be with me. This is going to be spoilers for everyone who read the book. I need to discuss this, okay? I just need to. So if you don't want to be spoiled, just continue and click on that button for the next book. But if you want to discuss a little bit of the book because you read it too, here comes your chance. I found it really hard and tough to read about Jude's point of view because he really went through so much. And it's basically his teens and his childhood that was so messed up and so horrible, and there happened so many horrible things to him that influenced his entire life. And all the injuries he got and all the illnesses he got, they plague him in his old age. And it's so unfair to think that something like that would happen to just one person, and that this one person would suffer through all of this. But then again, I think a lot of people made experiences like that and had to go through horrible, horrible things. And yeah, Jude, all the things that happened with the brothers, with the counselors, at the orphanage, with later on, it was just horrible. With the doctor that found him. Oh, you honestly, you suffer so much when you read the book with Jude. And yeah, it's just, I can't recommend this book. I honestly can't, because it's emotionally draining. It puts you through the ringer. And here comes the less spoilery part again. I'm going to switch back because I want to get a few notes down, general notes. I could relate to Jude's chronic pain in some way, because with the back pains, I have them sometimes too. Of course, Jude's life and the way he got them is way, way, way off from how I got my chronic pains. But I could relate to some of his smaller issues, let's say it like that, because Jude's issues and problems and back problems reach an entirely new level. So thankfully, I'm so grateful that my back pains are just regular, normal back pains that happened through the years. But I could relate to the early stages of his back pains. And I think if I had to summarize this book, and if I had to say what it is about, I would say it's basically about survival. This is a story about a survivor, about a person who went through a lot of horrible and unimaginable things, but who still continued to live, who still tried to make a life for himself. And I think in that regard, this story is really remarkable. And also I think from the mental illness perspective, it's really, I mean, I know we all would have wanted happiness for Jude, and that he would have longer happiness than he got. But I also think it's important to show that people who experienced things like that have to fight their entire life to have a normal life and to get back what they lost. So I found this very realistic, and it's like with, I don't know, when you're addicted to drugs or to alcohol or something like that, you recover your entire life. You try to live your life with the addiction, because just you stop to drink alcohol doesn't make you or doesn't make you not an alcoholic. You have to fight that urge to pick up a glass for the rest of your life. So I think the fight against, or the fight that Jude fought against himself and against his memories and against everything that happened to him, and his refusal to acknowledge that his body doesn't want the way he wants him to, or to acknowledge that bad things happen to him. It was very understandable and relatable, because those things defined him years after, even though he didn't want them to let him define him. So I don't know if I'm making any sense here, but I'll just leave it like that before I continue to talk about the book. I have 3 more books to talk about, so 4.5 paws, but I can't really recommend this book in good conscience, because you're gonna suffer. And you need to be in a really, really healthy and good mental headspace if you pick that one up. That's all I'm gonna say. Okay, next book I read was The Nobleman's Guide to Scandal and Shipwrecks by, I didn't even write it down, I think it was Mackenzi. So, let me check a minute. Yeah, it was Mackenzi. And it was the 3rd book of the Montagu siblings series. And this time around we got the point of view of Adrian, or the Goblin like they called him when he was a baby. It plays about 20 years or 18 years after Monty and Felicity's journeys and adventures. And Adrian has become an adult who is already engaged with a lovely girl. And he, after the death of his mother, he tries to find some clues for her death and about the spyglass she wore every day until she put it in a box and then fell off a cliff. So Adrian is very interested in solving if his mother just fell off the cliff, if she slipped, if she died due to an unnatural accident thing, whatever. And while he's searching for the other part of the spyglass, he comes across Monty, and later on across Felicity, or he crosses paths with Felicity as well. So all those 3 siblings get to know each other. And at first Monty isn't really nice to his little brother, and Adrian suffers from anxiety, so that only makes it even worse. And I really like the book, because at first they don't like each other, but they grow on each other, and quite honestly their relationship turned out to be so precious. I love the way Monty took care of his little brother, and how he could relate to him, and how he tried to make him feel better about himself. So Adrian is really such a precious character. I mean, I could understand how Monty couldn't be angry at him and just had to get to know him, because he's really lovely and intelligent, and he is such an honorable man. So I loved it about him, that he has that side as well, but that he's constantly fighting against his anxiety. The representation of that one was done really well, and you could totally understand where Adrian was coming from. But it was also hard to read sometimes. I know a couple of people who have anxiety disorders, and they really fight their entire lives against it and have to work on those anxiety disorders to keep them in check and to have a normal life. So I think Mackenzi did a really good job at that representation. And there was a silver lining at the ending of the book, so that's good. I really like that for Adrian. And the adventures they go through, some of them really had me smirking and laughing. So it was a great book. I gave it 4 paws because it was entertaining, it was well written, and the anxiety rap was great. Okay, next up, almost the last one. There's only 2 more. And that one was The Inheritance Games by Jennifer Lynn Barnes. And I gave that 4.5 paws. I wrote it down here because I absolutely loved it. As what it is about, it's basically about this girl named Avery Grams, and she is just an ordinary girl that gets by with her stepsister, I think, because her mother died and her sister is responsible for her. And yeah, those two are just getting by. Her sister has an abusive boyfriend, and Avery just doesn't want to be around him, so she sleeps in the car. And the next day she basically gets the info that she inherited a fortune with billions of dollars from a man she has never even met. So she is kind of taken to the Hawthorne Manor of that man and meets his 4 grandsons there, and I absolutely loved all those 4 boys. I mean, Xander and Grayson and Jameson and Nash are all very intriguing and different characters. I loved it about them. And of course, Grayson and Jameson are around Avery's age and both very tempting love interests. I personally loved Nash as well because Nash is such a cowboy and he is protective of all his brothers and everyone around him, and I really liked him. I also liked that he, I don't know, kind of kept out of all the intrigues and cunning things that were going on and was on Avery's side right from the moment she stepped into that big, huge manor. And well, that manor, the grandfather of those 4 boys left clues in the will for the reason why Avery got everything and inherited everything, even though she, well, no one knew about her before that, and she didn't even know the man. So it's also some sort of mystery puzzle that needs to be solved, and I was totally down for that, especially for all the hidden tunnels and rooms, and I don't know what else in that manor. It was great. I loved it. It kept my mind thinking, and yeah, of course, also Avery's sudden popularity is a topic as well, because if you're a nobody and suddenly everyone finds out that you inherited billions, that will do something with the media and with the way people see you and approach you. So I think that was done really well, and also the chemistry between Grayson and Jameson and Avery. It's a love triangle, apparently. I don't know how I feel about that one, but for now I'm content with it. Let's see how it will continue in the next 4 books. But I guess we will just have to find out. I will have to find out because I'm definitely going to pick up the next book. I really enjoyed that one. Okay, so last book I read in March, and that was also one I wanted to read for Meniscal March, and I actually finished it on the last day of March, and it was Mysteries of Thorn Manor by Margaret Rogerson. And I love that one. I gave it 4 paws, but that was just because I wanted more. And it was a short, nice story. There was nothing really, I don't know, mind-boggling, intense. It was just a nice story to read in between. And that's why it only got 4 paws, even though I enjoyed it a lot. Gotta take a sip here. I really like that one. I love to be back in this world and to find out what is happening with Thorn Manor, because apparently the house is intent on Nathaniel courting Elizabeth. So they are going through some sort of courtship and try to figure out how to appease the house before the winter ball, which they are hosting, by the way. So they only have about 10 days or so time to make the house nicer or to appease it. And it was really a nice story. It was so nice to be back in this world, and I loved all the Silas, Nathaniel and Elizabeth glimpses we got. I loved that Silas was a bigger part of this book and that we saw more of him. And I just adore Silas so much. I honestly, I wish there would be a book about Silas alone, or a trilogy about his former life, or after Sorcery of Thorns. Quite honestly, I need a Silas book. I love him so much. Just the way he handles himself, like how he's a deadly gentleman and gets offended by the style choices of other people. It's just, I don't know, there's something about Silas' character I love so much. And there was also a little bit of teasing about what happened and how he returned. So I need a Silas book, honestly. Margaret Rogerson, if you see this, give me a Silas book, please. Okay, so that's it. Those were the 6 books I read in March, and 2 of them were actually books for Minuscule March, so I did my reading this time around. Yeah, Idle Burning, I still need to get to that one. I didn't make it because I had to return so many books to the library. Yeah, you know, the road to hell is paved with good intentions. Anyway, that's it for the 6 books. And I would like to hear what you read in March. Did you take part in Minuscule March? Was I the only one who read books for Minuscule March? I hope I didn't. And which kind of books did you read if you joined Minuscule March? And which kind of other books did you read? Are there any you can recommend to me? Did you read A Little Life as well? And please, if you did, feel free to discuss it with me in the comments down below. I would really love to get some input from other people who read it, because it killed me. This book just killed me. And well, yeah, I guess we're already at the ending of my video, and there's nothing left to say except of take care, stay healthy and safe, and see you around the next time. Bye!